Okay, good morning. Today's ninth grade micro lesson is on Gandhi and India's independence movement from Britain. The New York Standard curriculum that it aligns with is Unit 5, F3B, Asia and the Middle East Nationalism, and the Indian National Congress. It also aligns with Unit 6C9, Colonial Response to European Imperialism, the case study on Gandhi. The objectives of the lesson today are for students to understand and comprehend the concepts of nonviolent protests and boycotts, to gain knowledge about Gandhi and why he is important to India, and students to be able to recognize and explain the cause and effects of Gandhi's nonviolent protests and how it led directly to Indian independence. What we're first going to do is write down a definition. That's very important to the lesson. It is the definition of civil disobedience, and it's on the board. If everybody can just take 30 seconds and write it down so you have it in your notes. Okay. And what we're going to do now is just go over some content about what was happening now in India before Gandhi arrived on the scene and after. But basically, England occupies and controls the country of India. In 1914, after representing Indians in South Africa as a lawyer for over 20 years, Mahatma Gandhi moves back to India. In 1914, after representing Indians in South Africa for over 20 years, Mahatma Gandhi moves back to India. In 1919, a peaceful crowd of protesters jammed into the Indian city of Amritsar, and British troops opened fire on the unarmed protesters and killed nearly 400 people, wounding another 1,100. Gandhi then becomes leader of the Congress Party in India. And throughout the 1920s and 30s, Gandhi launches a series of nonviolent actions against British rule. One was a boycott of British goods, mainly cotton. He organized India around the spinning wheel so that Indians could spin their own cotton and not have to rely on British cotton. He also organized and led the Great Salt March to the Sea. He organized the boycott on British salt, walked 240 miles, starting out with 78 people through many towns to the sea, so India could make their own salt. Okay, now we've gotten some basic content on what's taking place in India. We're going to watch 2 to 3 minutes of a video, some video clips and photos of Gandhi in action doing his protests. And while we're watching the video, I will explain that during these protests and marches, Gandhi was arrested, jailed numerous times. He was released every time. His supporters were beaten ruthlessly by the British forces, the people that would go on the marches with Gandhi. But for the most part, the Indian protesters would not fight back. Gandhi always stayed true to his beliefs that nonviolence or passive resistance was the only way to win the cause of independence. Britain was constantly seen as the aggressor during these episodes, especially the press. The newspapers would show the British forces constantly beating these unarmed demonstrators, and obviously it looked bad. Gandhi's tactics always seemed to outsmart the British. They always looked bad in the press, for the most part. And eventually, international pressure and the events of World War II led to the independence of India from England in 1947. So we've seen the video. What we're now going to do is I'm going to show you 5 quotes from Gandhi's book of philosophy of nonviolence that he wrote before he came back to India, actually. And I'm going to I'm going to put these quotes on the board, and I'd like you to choose. I'd like you to choose one of these 5. And I want you to pick one that means the most to you, or the one that you understand the most. Here's number 1. Here's number 2. And just we'll reflect on this for a minute. Think about them. And then we're going to break up into groups, 2 people per group. Here are the 3rd, 4th, and 5th quotes. And what I'd like you to do is, once you choose your quote that means something to you, means the most to you, write just on a piece of paper in your own words what it means and explain to your partner. And then your partner will do the same. So everybody picks out a quote and just explains pretty much what it means to them. Okay, and we'll do that for a couple of minutes. And while we're working on that and finishing that up, I'm going to follow up with a final question for all of you guys to, and that is, what is the goal of passive resistance or nonviolent protests? And for homework, what I'd like you to do is think about what we've seen. Think about the tactics that Gandhi used to achieve independence for India, what he went through. And then I'd like you to write a short essay comparing Gandhi's use of nonviolent protest to the civil rights struggle in our own country in the 50s and 60s, and how it was used by Martin Luther King. So there are a lot of similarities, and I just want you to think about that and bring in a short essay, and then we'll further discuss that tomorrow. So that concludes our micro lesson. Thank you.